What's up, traders? It's Kyle from K Capital. It's 12/13/2015, about 10 o'clock Sunday morning. Hope everyone's doing fantastic. Had a great weekend. Um, so let's get into it. I want to go through a few things with the overall market. Some concerning characteristics popped up Friday as the Dow sold off pretty big, about 300 points. I'll go through the SPX and the Russell in a second, but looking at the Dow here, one thing I've alluded to over the last week and a half is the 200 exponential moving average holding, and it has not. So really what we saw here is over the last couple months, beautiful bull trend, completely sold off, in late August. Tested the 200-day moving average, really just collapsed all the way down to 1550. We saw a nice bounce back, but one thing that concerned me over the last couple weeks is we couldn't really bounce off the 200-day moving average and see new highs. There was just continued selling pressure in the 1790 to 1800 range. Well, that selling pressure kind of continued through last week, and we tested the 200-day moving average. Technically, we tested it twice, and then Friday we broke through it, and we broke through it pretty strong. So I think we're going to unfortunately see new lows. So our focus with that is probably going to shift to more of a short position focus away from the long. I will go into, obviously, our current long positions, but over the next week or two, it's definitely going to be a situation where I'm going to look solely for swings that are going to be shorts. Positions that are overextended, small cap stocks that, have rocketed over the past couple weeks and really haven't seen a pullback, or positions that are below the 200-day moving average and are testing that and probably are going to sell off because of the overall market condition. So if you want to see a similar story, we can look at the SPX. Really, you can just see the selling pressure in the blue, and really same kind of story as the Dow. You saw it break through the 200-day moving average and sell off pretty hard. Frankly, I think we are going to test, at least at a minimum, probably 1980 to 1960 here. Continuing, you can look at the Russell, which trades obviously differently, just given the composition of the actual stocks within the index. This never really could break through the 200-day moving average and hold it. It had a nice week 2 weeks ago, but really, once we broke through that, it's really just been a downward spiral here, which unfortunately is what we've seen in a few of our positions that we had to close early. TTI being one of those, just really where you saw the sell-off in the entire market. So if we want to take that to our positions, EMKR is one that is, in my opinion, overdone in terms of the sell-off. And you're looking at 4 straight days past the earnings call of just complete selling. Now, I alluded to this in the prior video and in our Trader Planet post that there was definitely insider selling. That was a 10b5 plan established, obviously, many weeks ago, if not months ago, for those insiders, to where they wanted to sell either right after the call or they wanted to sell at a specific price. So the reason that's important is, as an insider, you can't just one day wake up and say, you know what, I want to take the insider information I know and go and sell the stock today. You just can't do it. You can't do it at buying, and you can't do it at selling. So all of those transactions have to be done way in advance. So you don't really know why someone's selling. And I know it's hard for people to understand, but this guy could be, or girl, the director, they could have sold because they wanted a new house, they wanted a new car, they wanted to pay for their child's tuition. It's not necessarily always a story of the company I work for is going bankrupt, I need to get out. And if you looked, the guy sold, roughly $2 million worth of stock, which is pretty significant, but he also holds, hundreds of thousands of shares through multiple companies. So this wasn't a story, of, the stock has been, fundamentally trading poorly. Our company's going bankrupt. I want to liquidate my whole entire position. I think this was a story of this guy has been probably part of the company for a really long time. If you back out, you can see that the stock has gotten killed over the last couple of years. And I think this individual probably said, okay, we saw a nice a nice, I guess you could say bankroll, or a nice pickup in the stock price over the last year. Let me close out some of my position here. And if you, go back technically, you can see that obviously there was a lot of selling in this area. I think the original sale price was around 805. And obviously continued all through the day, which makes perfect sense. Insider sales are obviously a bad thing. You don't want to really be trading against that, but I think it's overdone. And 2 things I really look for are, for starters, that the trend line is still continuing to hold, which it is. The 200-day moving average is still continuing to hold, which it is. And then the large area of prior demand where you saw a lot of buying, in this case the blue here, we saw significant buying on the gap and significant buying here, I think what was that, August 5th, is continuing to hold. And if you look, that held here all through those 2.5 weeks, and hopefully it continues to hold here. And this might be a good area to add. And so one thing that I definitely look for is stocks trading above the 200 exponential day moving average and are in an uptrend, and you're going to see buying along that price as the trend continues. So if you look back historically, it gapped up. You saw you traded along this trend line here, which would have been a good areas to add. It gaps up again. And naturally, it's going to pull back. Good area to add. Gaps up again. Pulls back. Good area to add. Continues up. So just following that pattern, we would technically want to add here. Now, your first question is probably going to be, okay, well, why did you add, at 8:05 last week? Well, I didn't really think that the insider selling or the selling pressure would continue. And I thought that this big bar would have been similar to here and it would have held. Well, unfortunately, the insider selling probably wasn't done. And I think he continued to sell, or obviously his broker continued to sell right around this area, and you saw more selling pressure. So the concerning thing here is that the market is still trading poorly. So if the Dow tanks completely, or the rest of the indices tank completely, this might be a completely moot point. We'll have to close out. So it's just going to be something I'm going to watch, obviously. Good thing here was that Thursday we did see a nice bounce along this trend line. You can just see the long-tailed candle here on that candlestick. So let's take a look at this and watch it for, obviously, next week, heading into the holiday the week after. Fundamentally, and again, you can read the post on Trader Planet or on the dashboard, this stock here is pretty well set fundamentally. You're seeing increased margins, increasing revenues and operating profit. So they're doing the right things. I just think that, this area here might be a really nice area to add. So I'm going to take a look at this and see how it trades Monday. Moving on, because I probably spent way too much time on that. ACXM is a stock I obviously love. I've been very bullish on this over the last couple weeks. Similar play, it's bouncing off the trend line. Unfortunately, it just saw a lot of selling pressure Friday with the overall dip in the market. So we're right at, I think, our average price right now. So it's just something I'm going to continue to watch. Hopefully see a nice bounce off the trend line. Zixi actually traded pretty well compared to the overall market. We saw a nice pop up and then just typical selling pressure as the market sold off in the afternoon. Not a really big concern yet. We're right around our stop loss. I think we're at 6%, so I'll probably either close this if this continues to sell, or just watch it closely and see if we can see a nice continuation back to 560. SD, I'm not going to get into. Obviously, that's just going to trade with crude. It's something right now that I think is just continuing to get hammered with the overall energy sector in the U.S. Two stocks I do want to actually go into are, one I'm looking at for short, which is NCTY. So the entire market gets completely hammered Friday, and this is the only stock on my watch list that's up. So it tells you two things. Either this is just in trading with the overall market, which wouldn't make any sense, or it's just a matter of time before this thing collapses back to 3. In my opinion, I think that is definitely the case. I think a stock that rallies from 1 to 450 in the span of 3 weeks is desperately calling for a pullback. It did pull back significantly, and you saw some nice buying pressure back around this area. But if you look, you can see a lot of long tails here on the sell side. So I think this definitely dips. It's a Chinese type company, and I haven't done enough fundamental research yet to warrant saying that this is a fundamental sell. So I'm purely saying this on the technical side. But usually shorting a fundamental Chinese company that's overbought right now is usually a good play, especially if the overall market's pretty crappy. And if you want to look, we can kind of go back here and see the overall trend. So you can see it's obviously been getting hammered. Anytime it has rallied above the 200-day moving average, it more or less immediately sold off. So if we want to count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6 separate times over the last 2 years that this has rallied above the 200-day moving average, and then the overall trend continued. So that's something I think we should see here, because fundamentally I couldn't see any really significant news besides a potential investment from I think a Chinese investor in this company. So this is the number one play I'm looking for Monday. Again, a short here. Probably probably 450 if we got in at this price, an initial target of 3 to 250. Like I said, I think this is way overdone. I think this is a pump and dump, and that's something we could probably capitalize on. That's it right now. I'm going to run, obviously, scans later today. New updated watch list, of course, and then I'll post this to the dashboard. Hopefully everyone has a pretty good Sunday and a great week. If you have any questions, please shoot me a call. I'll talk to you later, guys.